welcome back. I was tagged by Andrew Ballina in Australia, my buddy. He had a horror movie tag going around, like a 6-question tag. And I think it was started, he was tagged by a YouTuber named Lisa Loves. It was some interesting questions. I thought I would share my answers and open up the tag to whoever wanted to participate. So the first question is, we've already seen Alien versus Predator and Freddy versus Jason. What other two horror icons would I like to see battle in the next, I guess, Universal movie universe? The first icon that comes to mind is the Hunchback. I think the Hunchback is one of the more fascinating horror icons from my perspective, because he's much maligned. Yeah, he doesn't get the love that, say, Dracula or Frankenstein gets, but he's a very interesting. I think it's because he has a lot of human characteristics to go with the horror aspects. But I like the Hunchback, and I think the Hunchback deserves more love. I'd like to see the Hunchback maybe take on the Mummy. That would be interesting. I mean, we've seen Dracula versus Frankenstein, Frankenstein versus the Wolfman. Let's give the Hunchback and the Mummy a shot. I think that would be interesting. You know, the Hunchback, while he's deformed, he's also a pretty strong individual. I mean, he's able to throw boulders off a castle, top of a church tower. So I mean, the guy has some strength. And it would be interesting to see him take on, say, the Mummy or maybe even the Wolfman. So that would be my answer for that one. Number 2, would you rather survive a horror movie scenario but some of your friends die, or all of your friends live and you get killed in a horror movie? I would rather survive. You know, if I'm going to have to, if I got to throw my friends under the bus, hey man, what did they say? What did our buddy in Texas Chainsaw 2 say? It's a dog eat dog, and there just ain't enough dog out there. So yeah, I would pretty much go as I want to survive. Number 3, you're in a horror movie. Are you the final girl, the first to die, the comic relief, the skeptic, or the smart one, or the killer? I'm going to say I'm the comic relief. Believe it or not, I have a very dry sense of humor. I don't take a whole lot, maybe it's because of my age, but I really just don't take myself as seriously about anything, business, personal, particularly seriously. And I try to, sometimes I probably go overboard trying to make light of things and just take the tension and the unpleasantness out of things through comic relief. So I fancy myself as the comic relief. Number 4, we have seen horror icons in space, such as Leprechaun and Jason. Who do you want to see go to space? That's a tough one, because I'm trying to think of a horror icon that actually, where the story might actually work in space. And the only one I can come up with is the werewolf. I mean, the werewolf has human qualities. You know, I could see a scenario where a human that's actually a werewolf with the full moon is terrorizing a bunch of people aboard a ship. That would be in a closed setting. I think that would work as a movie. So I would go werewolf on that one. Number 5, when making sequels to horror movies, when do you think enough is enough? My answer is pretty simple on this. Enough is enough when the formula that worked from the beginning, the formula that made the film a success and the sequels a success, is changed or is no longer functional. I think that's when you need to put an end to it. I don't have a number in mind. I don't have an arbitrary number in mind. I just think that when you've gone away from the formula, if you've diverged enough from the formula that made the series so successful to begin with, you probably need to start rethinking the sequel And I think at that point you've probably run out of ammunition or ideas. Because there's a lot of sequels that, you know, from a number standpoint, they're great. I look at the Hammer Dracula franchise. That's 6, 7 films, and really they're all the same formula, and they all, to me, work in a broad sense. I enjoy all of them. I think in general, all the Halloween films, with the exception of 1 or 2, work. All the Friday the 13th, I think, work, with the exception of 1 or 2. And the ones that don't work, if you really kind of look into it, and it's the ones where they've gone off script from the formula that made them successful too far. Whether they have you know, gone into space and taken the character out of its natural setting, or they are now focused on destructing the horror icon with a bunch of backstory. The Halloween remakes of Rob Zombie come to mind in that respect, because you've taken what works, you know, this mysterious character who has no real motivation, and now you're destructing it and applying you're trying to basically explain why Michael Myers is doing what he's doing through normal means. You know, he had a bad childhood. That's why he's a killer. I think that when you start destructing horror icons, you probably need to call it quits. That's my opinion on it. Number 6, last question. Name a horror movie that was ruined because of the ending. Well, there's a lot of those. I think the most obvious one that comes to mind is the original It movie. The ending with the spider just killed, for me, that movie. You know, part 2, if they'd have stopped with part 1 and just stopped there, they'd had a great movie. But they went on and did the adults, and then they had that spider sequence that I think just kind of, you know, they just shit the bed when they did that. More recently, I've watched a couple that more recently I can single out. An Amicus film called And Now the Screaming Starts. I love the film. Peter Cushing in it. Great acting. Stephanie Beacham. I found the ending now silly. It's and I'm not gonna spoil it for anybody, but I think the ending now, looking at it, just kind of makes the entire proceedings that led up to it silly. The Squad in 2011, which is an Argentine film, I think the film is generally kind of dull and plotting, but the ending was really kind of a cheap-ass payoff, and it wasn't a payoff. I think they intended it to be a payoff, but it was a cheap, silly way to end the film. And then another famous one is, of course, Freddy versus Jason. I think, you know, they made it too comic, and the ending, I think, just exacerbated it. So I think those are my ones that come immediately to mind, of endings of films that kind of shit the bed for the rest of the movie. Anyway, those are my answers, and feel free to leave comments or thoughts below. I appreciate you watching. Thanks.